me again, Faith. This time I'm going to talk about how to make your resume if you want to get into a new grad residency program. I'm going to talk about some overarching tips that you can use when you're making your resume, and then I'll kind of go through the elements of my resume and what I used. So the first thing is to make your resume one page and one page only. Having a 3-page resume is just a recipe for not getting a job, in my opinion. Keep your resume very simple, very to the point, very easy to look at, not too crazy or hard to find things. You want it to be boom, 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 boom. This is my education, this is my GPA, these are my certifications, these are my experiences, and that's it. And just leave it like that. You do not have to make your resume in a certain font, but I would recommend something very, very simple like Times New Roman. Just go with Times New Roman. I made the font size definitely smaller to accommodate all of the stuff that I wanted to put on there. You do not have to make it size 12 font. You can make it size 9 if you wanted to. Mine is in size 9. It is very easy to read. It might look a little bit small on the screen just because we're used to writing things in size 12 font for essays and stuff, but when you print it out, it is totally fine to read. Size 9 is beautiful. No one's had any issues reading my resume. I've seen a lot of tips that say to make your resume stand out and make it a different color, make it multicolored, make your name super big and fancy lettering and font, and just make your resume stand out so they remember it. I would have to disagree. I don't think that they're gonna remember your resume. I don't think that that's something that is gonna make them be like, oh, that girl, I remember her. She had the purple thing with the sparkles and whatever. They're gonna be looking at this just as a resume to get the information they need and move on. Probably the thing that's gonna make you stand out a little bit more is what's on your resume or your personality when you come to the interview. So I would not recommend to make it super crazy, multicolor, really hard to, put little boxes everywhere and stuff. I do not recommend that. I have my resume right here in front of me. I'm just gonna kind of go through all the different elements that I have to it. So overall, I have an objective, education, clinical experience, certifications and licensures, professional affiliations, relevant experience, and work experience. So those were all things that were very important to me. There might be other headings that you can kind of include in there, but I think that those are the most important for getting a new grad residency because those are the things that they care about. I'll kind of walk through each of the things and talk about how I did it. Overall, my resume is left-centered. It has the headings in capitalized font. So objective is all capital letters. I have those in bold. Under each heading, if it has a list of things, which most of the resume does have a list of things under the heading, I'll put that in bullet points. And then if there's anything below that that needs clarification, I'll put that in a different bullet point. It kind of does it automatically on Word, but basically it'll be bullet points, and then under that, like a little bit indented to the right, will be a different kind of bullet point. I'll walk through each of the things. The objectives at the top, it has my objective below it. It basically just says, I'm seeking this position because I want to better my knowledge, better my experience, better my skill set. However, you can make that sound pretty nice and cool. Under that is gonna be your education. If you just got a nursing degree in 4 years, then you can put, because I went to Texas A&M, so all I had to do was put Texas A&M Health Science Center. If you had an undergraduate degree and some other bachelor's of science in health or something like that, I would definitely also put that on there. I put Texas A&M Health Science Center, I put the city next to it, and then below that in a bullet point, I put Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, and next to that, I put my cumulative GPA. If you don't want to put your GPA, you don't have to. I haven't seen anything that says that you need to include your GPA. Below that, I had clinical experience. I've seen that this is required on most resumes if you want a residency position. A lot of people are confused on what to put here, but I'm gonna tell you what I put. I did not put any additional description to it. I put what clinical I did, what unit it was in, where it was at, and that's pretty much it. For example, under clinical experience, I have that capital in bold. I put a bullet point, and then I had obstetrics and gynecology, and that's because I wanted a labor and delivery position, so that was the first one that I included. I put next to it the amount of hours that I did, so I did 60 hours. I just did -60 hours. And then below that, I did a second bullet point, and I did what hospital it was in the city of that hospital. Pediatrics, adult health, 1 and 2, mental health, and then transition. So transition is like the last class that you take where you do all of your 12-hour shifts in whatever field you want. Those are all the clinical experience bullets that you should have. The next heading is certifications and licensures. I had 5 certifications. These can be like one of our classes was teamwork, and we got a team steps certification. So you can kind of pick and choose what you want. I left out some weird ones, but there's so many certifications and weird things that you get in nursing school. You can definitely find some stuff to throw in there. Make sure you include the big ones like BLS, ACLS, or PALS if you got that, or I got Community Emergency Response Team CERT education, so I put all of those on there. I had a bullet point for each one of them. Next to it I put in italics certified, and then below that I put the association or organization that gave me that certification. So for ACLS I put under it American Heart Association. All the way on the right side I put the month and the year that I got certified with those things, just very clearly, just even with the certification. So for ACLS, I put Advanced Cardiac Life Support, certified, and then all the way on the right side, I put March 2019. And I also got a tip that you should put the most recent first. Try not to put it in order of what you think is coolest, I guess. Put it in the order of most recent to least recent. After that, I had professional affiliations. So these are organizations that you were involved in, whether they're in a nursing school or national organizations like AWAN. So I had bullet points for each one of them. I had them in bold, and I wrote out the entire name of the organization. So I wrote out member of Association of Women's Health Obstetrics and Neonatal Nurses. And then I put member of Aggie Pediatric Nurses Association. So I listed out each one of those and put them in bold. I did the same thing. On the very right side, I put when I was involved in those organizations so they could see how long you were involved with them. So for A1, I put November of 2018 to present. The last one I decided to include on there was alumna of Delta Epsilon Mu, the Lambda chapter. They probably don't care about that, but that was a professional health fraternity in college that I was involved in. It's a nationally recognized organization, so I decided to include that because it has to do with health and nursing. Below that, I have a tab for relevant experience. I think this was probably the hardest one to kind of get perfect, but I think it was probably the most important one because they can kind of read about some of the cool stuff that you've been a part of and done. This portion was the only part that I actually talked about things, and I threw in like the typical resume kind of stuff, all those types of cool resume words. This is where I put those. So for example, I was involved in an organization called the Cody Stevens Foundation. They did heart screenings for kids in middle school and high school around Texas and did an EKG for them. And if there was any abnormal results, we would send it off to a healthcare provider so they could look at it, and it just helped find life-threatening conditions that these kids might have. I volunteered with them very frequently, so I put on there Cody Stevens Foundation. Below that, I put student nurse volunteer, so my role in whatever that experience was. And I put a description of what it was. So performed heart screenings for secondary prevention, diagnosed young athletes with potentially life-threatening heart conditions. So I put a nice little description of what I did, why it was valuable to my nursing experience, why it helped me learn something, just something about what you did and why it was important. So I had about 5 of those. You want to pick your most impressive and most relevant experience. Texas A&M College of Nursing Disaster Day. So that was kind of one of the ones where I wasn't sure if I should include that or not, but it's actually pretty cool. Texas A&M is one of the only colleges that does something like that. It was a collaborative effort with the College of Nursing, College of Medicine, College of Pharmacy, all coming together to create a simulation that helps us get experience in providing care to people in disaster situations in the community. And it did provide a really, really cool experience that gave me lots of knowledge on handling emergency situations. With those relevant experiences, I did the same thing as earlier, and I put the date that I was involved in those experiences off to the right-hand side. Last part that I included was a work experience part. I think this is really valuable. I know that some of my colleagues had never had a job before, so they wouldn't include this, but I think that it's really important that they know that you've had a job before. Maybe you did that while you were in college, while you were in nursing school. It's still impressive, even if it doesn't have to do with nursing. If it is important to you and you did it for a long time, you showed dedication to it, you were committed to it, I think it's very relevant to include that. So I put my job in the health and kinesiology advising office. It was literally an office job. It has nothing to do with nursing at all, but I still thought it was important to include that I was committed to that job for this length of time, and I have had experience with having a job before. Overall, I think that the way that I made my resume was very helpful. When I went and did peer interviews, I handed them my portfolio. My portfolio had my resume in it, and they literally just looked at it. I had like a couple of seconds of looking at it, and they said, "Oh wow, you're already certified in ACLS. I see that right there. That's awesome." And then they went down, "Oh, you're a member of A1. Cool. We're a third rider on a life flight. Tell me more about that." They could see everything very easily. Like I said in my last video, if there was anything that you didn't get to include on your resume that you really wanted to talk about, then just tell them that. Whenever they have "is there anything else you would like to include" part, tell me about yourself in the very beginning, you can include something like that. Don't stress about fitting it all on your resume. Make sure you hit the most important things. Keep it very simple, keep it relevant. A question that some people might have is, what do I include? Should I include things from high school? Should I include things from college? I think that the best answer that I can give is to keep it very relevant. If there is something that has to do with nursing, with improving your nursing experience and increasing your knowledge of being a nurse, include that. Or if it's healthcare related. If you're in just something that was not really associated with nursing or healthcare in general, I would say to try to avoid that. And I would say really, really hold yourself to the 1-page limit, because that will prevent you from just putting whatever the hell you want on your resume, because it is all not needed. They are going to look at this resume for like 3 minutes tops. They are not going to spend a ton of time on it. And if they are having frustration with finding the important things, they might just kind of give up on your resume and look on to the next candidate. Keep it with the most important things, and by holding yourself to that 1-page limit, that can really help with that. Another thing is that I definitely made all of the borders very small. My resume takes up pretty much the entire paper, with a little bit of room, but not 1 by 1 by 1 by 1. That was not cutting it for me. I needed to make it, I'm guessing it was probably 0.5 all the way around. Another thing that my dad actually helped me with that I kind of wanted to mention real quick, you should try to keep it all in the same tense. Use your thesaurus. Go on to synonyms.com or whatever. Say words that are very impressive, descriptive, and professional. I'll read one for the prenatal clinic that I have. Obtained and recorded patient medical history and vital signs, conducted laboratory assessments, assisted physicians in obstetric procedures, organized and sterilized medical equipment, and educated patients and families on improving pregnancy outcomes. So I kept that all in like a past tense, and then I just kind of listed it out, the things that I did. With this little description part, it is important that you try to make it sound as good as possible, whatever that experience that you did. Just make it, pretty fluffed up, pretty extra, more exciting than maybe what it actually was that you did. Those are all my tips that I have for making a resume for getting a new grad resident position. After you make one, have at least like 3 people look over it and find mistakes. So make sure that everything is aligned perfectly, double check all of your spelling, go through and check and make sure that your tense is good, that all the same things are bulleted, all the same things are bold, and just by having a couple sets of eyes on it will really help with that. I hope this helped. I would love to answer any questions that anyone has about the resume. Just go ahead and comment down below, and bye.